Hello and welcome back to the Cars.co.za Cape Town office. My name's Ciro De Siena and you probably know what this video is about already because you've seen the thumbnail and clicked on the title. But in this video, I'm going to explain to you and tell you about my experience in buying a Discovery 4. Yes, I think these are wonderful cars. I think this particular unit is wonderful because it's mine. So in this video, we're going to cover how to test drive a Disco 4, the common problems, and the cheat code that I sort of discovered for the Discovery 4. And if you're looking for a Disco 4, you brave soul you, we have 287 on our site right now. We'll put a link to that stock in the description below. Right, let's go. A thorough, helpful, hopefully, video about how to buy a Disco 4. Don't stall, install. From quick search to in-depth research, do it all on our updated app.
Whether you're an angel, a dictator, a space captain, a tree, or just if your car is stolen, we'll help you replace it.
Oh, it's still Archie's car, man.
With no drama. Budget, the official insurer of good South Africans.
Now, Discoveries do have this terrible reputation. I think we just have to accept that. And there is quite a lot of risk when you're buying one. However, buying any car is all about risk. If you have no appetite for risk, buy a new car. If you've got some appetite, buy a used car. If you like gambling, buy a car on an auction. So the way to mitigate this risk is to do a very careful inspection and test drive. And I'm going to take you through a couple of things that you can do on your test drive and your inspection to pick up the common problems that there are with this car. Now, a quick word on internet research. Generally doing internet research, it's important, but it will probably scare the out of you. There are a lot of varying opinions and varying information out there. And just remember that there is a reporting bias. People talk about problems way more than they talk about having no problems. Right, the first thing to check when you're looking at a Discovery is the service books. I know this goes for all cars, but for the Discovery, it's particularly important. Now, if there aren't any service books, walk away. You're basically looking here for a full service history. It is really, really important. These cars need to be well maintained. And inside of that service history, you're looking for one very important item, and that is this, the cam belt being done. It's a big, expensive job because the cab has to come off of the chassis. Now, it has to be done around 140 to 160,000 kilometers. And if it hasn't been done, let's say you're looking at a car with 130,000 kilometers, you're going to have to do it really, really soon. So we phoned a Land Rover specialist for 2015 cars or older. He charges 19,000, and 2015 or newer because he has to separate the cab. Then he charges 25,000 Rand for that job. So that's what you're looking at if you have to do the cam belt. Now, the number one problem that everyone talks about when you discuss a Disco 4 is the air suspension. And you do need to look out and look at it very, very carefully. And this is how you do that. So when you approach the car that you're looking at, take a good walk around and make sure that the car is sitting level. If it's not, if it's sagging on one side or sagging on one corner, it means there's probably a leak in that air spring. Now, the other thing you need to do is get in the car, turn it on, and sit and raise and lower the suspension a couple of times. You want it to raise and lower very, very evenly, and most importantly, you don't want to hear any noise from the compressor. The compressor is located sort of underneath the seat over here in front of the rear left wheel, and if it's making any noise at all, that is a concern. And here are the prices for the replacement parts from Land Rover. You're looking at about 13,000 ex-VAT for an air spring and 28,000 for the compressor. Now, it's quite rare for the entire system to fail, and that means that if the rest of the car is in great condition and the price is right, but you suspect that maybe one corner will need to be replaced, it might still be worth considering the car. onto another common problem, which is also sort of located over here. So that's your handbrake switch. It's an electric handbrake. Now what tends to happen is over time, dust and dirt and grime and that sort of thing gets into the handbrake mechanism and it seizes. And if it seizes, let's say the car is in your garage, the car is going to be stuck in your garage. It can be quite a big problem. So another thing you want to test is you want to get in the car and release and engage the handbrake a couple of times and make sure it's not making any concerning noises. So let me tell you a story about how my Discovery ownership began. Day one, drove home in stop-start traffic, car ran beautifully. Day two, on the highway, 120 k's an hour, limp mode. Yay, Discovery ownership. So this is what I was talking about. How many headaches are you willing to put up with? How much risk are you willing to put up with? Luckily, I've got a great mechanic. So straight to him, diagnostic tool. We thought it was the mass airflow sensor. Now this is a really cheap problem to fix. 1,700 bucks from Goldwagen for a nice German part, or 2,300 for one from Land Rover. So we put a different MAF in, that didn't help. So he said, leave the car with me. And this is where one of the car's common problems comes in. We found a cracked intake manifold. It's quite common on the high mileage diesels. The problem is there is no way you're going to pick this up with a visual inspection. It's buried way deep in there. You have to take half of this stuff off to even get a look at it. So top tip, when you are test driving the car, insist to the dealer that you need to take the car on the highway. You need to take it up to about 120, little bit over, and look if it goes into limp mode or if any warning lights come up on the dashboard. Another problem buried in here is what's called the exhaust gas recirculation. Now this is pretty complicated, it's not very important, except what is important is that it also cracks and leaks. Now luckily there's quite an easy fix to this. There are blank off plates which your mechanic can put in place to blank off the system and then go into the software and just simply turn that off. So that is not a huge job, but it is one of the problems you might face when it comes to a high mileage turbo diesel Discovery. And lastly, a big one buried all the way inside there is the crank. Now, if the crank goes, you're in serious trouble. Your engine will pretty much shut down. It's exploded. You're going to need a new engine. It can be a major issue. And there's one very easy way to avoid it. Now, it's very difficult to detect if the crank is going to go wrong. It's almost impossible. These are quite sort of juddery engines. At idle, you could sort of listen out if it's more juddery than it should be, but the average person probably won't be able to pick it up. However, here's a sort of rule of thumb. The 2012s and earlier suffered from way more crank problems than the 2013s and later. That's one of the reasons why I went for this, because it's a 2013. So the year of the model that you're looking at is particularly important. Now, when you're inspecting a potential Land Rover Discovery 4, unfortunately, you're going to have to get on the ground. Do not be shy about this. Get on the ground in the showroom floor or wherever the car is, because you're looking for a couple of things. Right, these are off-road cars. You expect them to have been taken off-road, but you are looking for any particular nasty gashes or dents, especially on the control arms, which are these huge things connected to the wheels. Those often need to be replaced if they've been damaged. The other thing you're looking for here is leaks. These cars can be leaky and that can be expensive to fix. And when I was at the dealership, I got under here, I pretty much crawled under the car, didn't see a single leak, which is another reason why I bought this particular car. Now, of course, the Discovery is legendary for some problems, but it is legendary for its off-road ability. But the reality is, in my opinion, most of these cars spend most of their lives on tarmac, running around, doing the school run or going to the office. Some of these cars, a lot of them, have lived quite a soft life, and there are a few ways to tell this. Now, I looked at the wheels of this car. They're all in fantastic condition, which in my opinion, I don't think they've been refurbished. I think they're original, and that for me is a really good sign that it's lived a soft life. Now, you also would expect some bush rash if the car has been off-road extensively, and this car has very little of those fine scratches. There's a couple up here, but there's absolutely none on the fenders where you'd expect to see those sort of scratches from going off-road. The overall condition of the car is really important, and another reason why I bought this particular car was I couldn't see a single significant scratch or dent anywhere on the bodywork. It just looked like it had been really well looked after. Right, that cheat code that I mentioned, it's 2 letters, XS. Now, I always wanted a Discovery. I had narrowed my options down. I was either looking at a first-gen facelift Cayenne or a second or third-gen BMW X5, but these were more in my price range. But because of the reputation of the car, I always just sort of admired them from a distance. And then I heard about the XS. So in 2013, Land Rover South Africa released a more hardcore off-roady version of the Discovery called the XS. It was a much cheaper version. It had a lot of things stripped out. There were no sunroofs, for instance, no heated seats. It did without a lot of the really cool fancy stuff you get in the other more fancy models. However, the one important thing it did without was air suspension. Also didn't have a DPF. And so it totally removes that problem from purchasing a Discovery 4. It's actually really quite nice to ride around, you know, not feeling like there's a time bomb under your backside. And so that's why I finally took the plunge and went for a Discovery 4. I do really recommend these XSs. Yes, if you want that limousine ride, and if you want the third row of seats, and you want the cool raising of the suspension, all the rest of it, you're going to have to look for an S, an SE, or an HSE. But this thing suited me perfectly. I got it for 290 grand, and I think that's so much car for 290,000 rand. Yeah, if I could afford one, maybe I'd go and get a Discovery 5. But how much better would my life actually be? All I look for in a car: good aircon, good power steering, comfortable seats, leather seats, and Bluetooth. And this car has all of that. So I am incredibly happy with my car. And if you are interested in a Disco 4, the XS spec, you're going to have to move quite quickly because they're becoming really quite sought after by the 4x4 community. And of the 287 Discos we have on our site, 3 of them are XSs. Yeah, they are pretty rare. So while the XS does come without that air suspension problem, you can buy one with air suspension and convert it to non-air suspension. It is just quite a complicated and expensive job. Right, I hope you found this video useful. I'm not an expert mechanic. I'm not an expert on Discoveries. I just wanted to share with you what I have learned and how I bought this car. We'd love it if you subscribed and liked this video, and we'll see you on the next one. Cars.co.za. Not only is Cars.co.za the best place to find your dream car, but it's also the easiest place to sell your current car. Check out the sell car section on our main website. Simply list your car's details and all of our dealers will take bids on your car. You just choose the highest price. Boom, your car's gone. On to your next one. Right, thanks very much for watching the video. Okay, I think I'm done. Yeah, I'm finished now.
Get insurance that pays out faster than the word Archie. Budget, the official insurer of good South Africans.